Hi, I'm Dustin Abbott. This is the place where the magic happens. This is the workstation that I do not only the editing of my own photos, but also where I put together my videos, where I go through and do my image quality examinations, all of those things. So because of the ever higher resolution of not only cameras, but also of video footage, I have to really keep on top of keeping my workstation up to date and with components that are going to make sure that I'm not wasting time trying to wait for the computer to do its job. So as a byproduct, I'm continually invested in upgrading this workstation. It just so happened that a few years ago when my computer guy, Chance, whom you'll meet in a moment, when he built this workstation for me, he determined that because it could take M.2 SSD drives, that he recommended that I put a Samsung drive in it. So I did. I had good success with it. That was a 1 terabyte drive. A few years later, I decided that I wanted to upgrade that to a 2 terabyte drive, which I did about a year ago. So when Samsung reached out to me about reviewing their most recent 9100 Pro M.2 SSD drive with Heatsink, I said sure, because it was another way to upgrade my system, maybe get a little bit more speed, and then also, as there's always a use for additional drives in your computer. And so I said yes. I took it to my computer guy and we did the installation. You'll meet him in just a moment. And then afterward, I've been actually using the workstation and running some benchmarks to see if there is any kind of noticeable improvement when it comes to access and write speeds. And so today we're going to dive into that review and to see whether or not this latest Samsung drive is worth your investment, and so that you can keep up to pace with all of the high demands of AI, video editing, photo editing, all of those things. Let's jump into it and let's go meet Chance. Installation was generally straightforward if you have an open PCI slot. There were two relatively minor problems that we solved during installation due to the integrated heatsink. It's thicker than a standard model, so at first we didn't have enough depth to still use the shield that normally covers that slot, and the screws weren't long enough. We eliminated the redundant shield since the heatsink is built into the SSD, and then the drive fit fine. This was necessary because it has to sit somewhat under my graphics card on this motherboard, and we needed the room. I think Samsung should include some screws of a few lengths with the integrated heatsink model to accommodate the extra depth of the drive. After installation, Chance cloned my existing main operating system drive over to the new drive, and so that I could run programs off of it and take advantage of the speed advantages. So we'll run a few benchmarks here. First, we're going to start with a standard SSD drive. This is attached via USB-C. So let's take a look at what specs we get off of that. So I won't bore you with watching that whole process, but it took nearly 6 minutes to run on that. So now we're going to move to a second drive. And so this is my older, this is the 990 EVO 2 terabyte M.2 drive from Samsung. So let's take a look at how it does running the same benchmark test. So right off the bat, you can see that there is a huge advantage here for its write speed and read speed compared to the older drive. And so what took nearly 6 minutes takes just a few seconds here. So finally, we're going to move to the most recent drive to see if we can actually get an improvement based off of this. And so now we're going to go to the 9100 Pro with Heatsink. Let's take a look. So right off the bat, we do see that while it's not as massive an improvement over the other drive, there is certainly an improvement when it comes to the write speed, though the read speed comes out the same. Now, clearly, I'm not getting anywhere the maximum potential of either one of these drives, and that is because the limitation now is actually my version of PCIe, which obviously the next upgrade I need to do is to my actual motherboard itself, and so that I can maximize the speeds available from this. So my experience shows what is the challenge when you're doing computer upgrades, namely that your performance is going to be limited by the weakest link in the chain. So in this case, I have massive amounts of memory in this system. I've got 64 gig of memory in it. Obviously, I've got a very fast M.2 drive here. I've got an amazing graphics card in the system. I've got a lot of great components. However, I'm still limited when it comes to the speed by the basic bus speed that I am dealing with there. And so that shows the challenge that is there. Now, That doesn't mean that this drive isn't going to perform even better as I continue to upgrade my computer, because clearly the speed advantage is there, and I am seeing in real world, real time, I am seeing some improvement based on that. I can see it in the access time and the time that programs open and how smoothly that they run. There certainly is an improvement there. However, I'm not really achieving the full potential yet. And so that's something to bear in mind if you are considering an upgrade. It's just not so simple with computers as buying one component, dropping it into a system, and immediately seeing across the board improvements. The other thing to consider here is price, because these drives, because they represent the latest in technology, they are more expensive than what you're going to see with some other less modern, less new drives. So in this case right now on B&H Photo, this drive is available for $429 US. It's currently discounted, however, from an MSRP of $549 US. Here in Canada, the price is running closer to $800, so a significant investment. And so you're gonna have to determine for yourself. By the way, that's for the 4 terabyte, which is the largest size version. Obviously, the price is going to scale down accordingly if you don't need that much storage. In this case, I think the best way to use these drives is not to use them as your main storage drive, but rather to use it as a drive that you run your programs off of, and then you can use a different kind of cheaper and larger storage medium to just house files, be it your photos, be it your video files. And that's the way that I try to handle things in this system. I have got for video and for photos, I have 16 terabyte drives for each one of those for storing what I have on the system itself, and then backups that are backing up those. The other thing that that I wasn't really thinking about for myself, because I'm not necessarily a gamer, but I noticed in looking through the user reviews that a secondary application for these is a lot of people have looked at them for installing into something like a PS5 because it significantly upgrades the amount of storage that's available there, and obviously doing so with very, very fast read-write speeds, which is going to be great for gaming. So maybe a secondary consideration there if you're looking for a drive like this. At the end of the day, my review in some ways is still incomplete. I think that from what I've seen, there is a definite improvement there. I don't doubt, because Samsung has a great name in this space, that those kinds of speeds are probably achievable. They're just not under the constraints of my current system at this time. And I hope that that helps you, to give you some perspective as to what should be your upgrade path as you move ahead in upgrading your own workstation or your PlayStation. As always, thanks for watching. I hope that this has helped. Have a great day, and let the light in.